All units, hold positions! We have a hard landing!
Airfield Tower Chief Randy Church had exactly 6 seconds to stop an unauthorized aircraft from landing on his runway, and he used every one of them. Unidentified aircraft, you are not cleared to land. I repeat, you are not cleared to land. Abort your approach immediately. The aircraft kept descending, steady, unbothered by the panic flooding through his radio. This is a controlled airspace. You do not have clearance. Abort your approach now! The wheels touched down anyway, smooth, precise, exactly on the center line. Randy Church slammed his hand on the console and radioed the ground response team. Get out there and find out who just violated my airspace. I want an explanation in the next 2 minutes. 2 trucks screeched out onto the tarmac, security personnel moving fast, weapons ready, adrenaline running high after the tensest 90 seconds of Randy's 12 years in that tower. The aircraft door opened. A woman stepped out, calm, unhurried, straightening her jacket as the security team surrounded her. Then, someone's flashlight caught the patch on her shoulder, and every single person on that tarmac froze at once. 5 stars. Randy Church, watching from the tower window, felt his blood turn to ice. Stick around, because what happens over the next 20 minutes of this story is one of the most unbelievable, wrong assumption stories we've ever told on this channel. And if you love watching quiet authority completely dismantle a room full of panic, hit subscribe right now, because we post a new story exactly like this one every single week. General Eleanor Vance held a rank that existed on paper more than in daily practice. A 5-star designation reserved for only the rarest circumstances, carried by fewer living officers than could fill a single dinner table. She hadn't planned on landing at this particular airfield. Her scheduled destination had been a base nearly 200 miles away, but a sudden and serious weather system had forced an emergency reroute mid-flight, and this airfield had simply been the closest viable option, with a runway capable of handling her aircraft. Standard emergency landing protocols existed for exactly this situation. Protocols that, under normal circumstances, would have triggered immediate priority clearance from any tower in the country the moment her transponder code registered. The problem was, that particular airfield's tower had experienced a communications outage 20 minutes earlier, right around the same time her aircraft entered its airspace. Her priority clearance code, transmitted automatically, had never actually reached Randy Church's console. All he'd seen was an unidentified aircraft descending toward his runway without any record of authorization, which, from his position in that tower, looked exactly like the kind of security threat every controller trains obsessively to prevent. She'd made the landing anyway, weighing the immediate safety risk of the deteriorating weather against the near certainty that ground crews would sort out the confusion within minutes of touchdown. She hadn't expected quite this much confusion. Randy Church wasn't wrong to panic. In fact, from where he sat, he'd done exactly what his training demanded: treat an unauthorized landing during a communications outage as a potential security incident until proven otherwise. "Ground team, converge on that aircraft immediately," he ordered over the radio, watching the trucks race across the tarmac. "I want that pilot identified and explaining herself in the next 90 seconds. The response team surrounded the aircraft the moment the door opened, weapons lowered but ready. Adrenaline thick in the air after 90 seconds, most of them would remember for a long time. "Ma'am, hands where we can see them," the lead security officer called out. "You need to explain why you just landed an unauthorized aircraft on a secured runway." Eleanor Vance raised her hands calmly, entirely unbothered by the tension surrounding her. "I attempted to contact your tower before initiating my approach. I received no response. Given the deteriorating weather conditions, I made the decision to land regardless, prioritizing the safety of this aircraft." "That doesn't give you clearance to just land wherever you want," the officer snapped back, still on edge. This is a federal violation, ma'am, and I need identification immediately. Of course, she said, reaching slowly and deliberately into her jacket. She produced her credentials and held them out. The officer's flashlight caught the patch on her shoulder first, 5 stars, arranged in a configuration held by fewer than a handful of living officers in the entire military. The color drained from his face in real time. If you love watching the exact moment panic turns into pure dread, you're going to enjoy the rest of this story even more. But first, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because this channel is full of moments exactly like this one. General Vance, the officer said, his voice cracking slightly as he lowered his weapon and snapped to attention. Ma'am, we had no idea. The tower didn't have any record of your transponder. I'm aware, Eleanor said, unbothered. Your tower experienced a communications outage roughly 20 minutes ago, right around the time my priority clearance code should have reached your console. That's not a security failure on your part. That's a technical failure worth investigating. Up in the tower, Randy Church had gone completely still, watching the scene unfold below him, his stomach twisting into a knot with every second that passed. He keyed his radio with a shaking hand. General Vance, this is Tower Chief Randy Church. I owe you an explanation and an apology, ma'am. I'd like to hear both, Chief, she said, but not over the radio. I'll come up. 5 minutes later, she stood in his tower, calm, composed, watching him with an expression that gave away nothing about how she felt regarding the last 10 minutes of her life. Ma'am, I need you to understand, Randy said. We had zero record of your approach. No transponder confirmation, no clearance code, nothing on our system indicating an inbound aircraft of any kind. From where I was sitting, that looked exactly like an unauthorized incursion. I understand completely, Chief, she said. And for what it's worth, your response was correct. You treated an unidentified aircraft as a potential threat and escalated appropriately. That's not the part I have concerns about. Then what is, ma'am? She considered the question. The outage itself. If my transponder code had reached your system the way it was supposed to, none of this would have happened. I want to understand why that failure occurred, because the next aircraft that reroutes into your airspace during an emergency might not get the benefit of a pilot willing to land anyway and sort out the confusion afterward. Over the following hours, base technicians traced the outage to a failed relay module in the tower's communications array, a piece of equipment that had been flagged for replacement 3 separate times over the preceding 6 months, each time deprioritized in favor of what were deemed more urgent maintenance needs. Eleanor Vance reviewed the maintenance logs herself, methodically, without a hint of the frustration Randy had braced himself for. This should have been replaced months ago, she said finally, setting the report down. Yes, ma'am. That's on the base commander's maintenance office, not the tower staff. I understand that, Chief. Nobody in this tower is the problem here. The problem is a piece of critical infrastructure sat on a deferred maintenance list for 6 months until an unscheduled landing during an emergency turned a paperwork oversight into a genuine security incident. Randy exhaled, some of the tension finally leaving his shoulders. I appreciate you seeing it that way, ma'am. I was fully prepared for this to end my career. It's not going to, she said. You did your job exactly the way you were trained to. The system around you failed, not you personally. Those are 2 very different problems, and only one of them is yours to fix. What happens now, ma'am? Now, I make sure this relay module gets replaced today, not next quarter, she said. And I make sure every base in this region reviews their deferred maintenance lists for anything else sitting on borrowed time. By the end of the week, General Vance's review had triggered an emergency maintenance sweep across 6 different bases, uncovering 3 additional pieces of critical communications equipment sitting on similarly deferred timelines, any one of which could have caused an identical incident under the wrong circumstances. Randy Church, rather than facing the disciplinary review he'd braced for, found himself commended for his handling of the situation. A rare instance of a tower chief managing a genuine security scare with precision and composure, even without ever raising his voice past the standard escalation protocol. When a young controller at a different base asked him, months later, what it had actually been like watching a five-star general's aircraft land without clearance, Randy thought about it for a long moment before answering. Terrifying, he admitted, right up until I realized she wasn't angry about the confrontation. She was angry about the maintenance list that caused it. That told me everything I needed to know about the kind of officer she actually was. Eleanor Vance never mentioned the incident publicly again, but the story made its way through nearly every tower in the region within weeks, not as a cautionary tale about overstepping authority, but as a reminder of exactly what happens when a broken system meets someone determined enough to actually fix it instead of just surviving it. Here's a question for you. If you were sitting in that tower and watched an unidentified aircraft ignore your abort orders and land anyway, would your instinct have been the same as Randy's? Treat it as a threat first and ask questions later? Or would you have hesitated? Tell me your honest answer in the comments below. I want to know if you think you'd have made the same call under that kind of pressure. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat the way it did while I was writing it, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because we post a brand new story just like this one every single week. Stories about the moments when quiet authority meets a system that failed everyone around it. Tap the notification bell too, so you never miss the next one. Thanks for watching all the way through. I'll see you in the next story.